Good evening, my lovely listeners, queridas, queridos, queridas. Welcome back to another episode of Wandering Thoughts of a Muse. I am Daydreaming Muse, visual artist and fashion illustrator based in Arizona, and tonight we are gonna be talking about a tricky subject, as you might have noticed from the title. And so, we're gonna get into that. If you can, make yourself cozy, get some tea or just something to help you stay relaxed during this difficult conversation. And I myself made some jujube tea, which is red date tea. It's a the recipe that I used is a Korean style recipe, but I believe this is a tea that is used in most of Asia, I believe. I could be wrong, but if you know anything about that, feel free to share in the comments, or you can just share with me something that helps you feel a little bit more cozy or comforted. Um, when it's time to have discussions on some tricky subjects or yeah, tricky subjects. And uh well, we are gonna get through it. And I'm gonna say this disclaimer again that I am not the best speaker. I'm not the most articulate person. I've kind of always been that way. So if you notice that I mess up a lot on my words, or like my sentences are not making very good sense, now you know it's because I'm just not gifted in being articulate. I have a lot of things on my mind, but I just cannot speak that well on what's on my mind. So it's just like it's kind of like you are wandering through all these different little thought bubbles in my head, and well, I'm just talking about things that have been on my mind. It's just me sharing my perspective. It's not supposed to be taken like as like gospel or anything. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. And if you have any other information or just like feedback that you want to share, or yeah, like just like your own perspective, you are so welcome to do that. Um and so let's try to get to into this topic. And just so you know, I do have some notes, but at the same time, my notes are all kind of messy. So again, we're just gonna go like try to talk about this subject and see what happens. And so this episode, I wanted to talk about what it's like growing up with parents who didn't exactly like you because of your gender. And in my case, I am speaking from my perspective as a is it young, am I still considered young? I don't know. I'm in my late 20s. Well, I'm just gonna say a young adult. I am a young Mexican woman, the eldest daughter of a Mexican family who immigrated to the US. And we came here when I was an infant. So I think the journey started when I was 4 months old, and we got to the US officially when I was 8 months old. So, um, that's the perspective that I'm speaking on. So, a little bit about Mexico and just kind of its long history with how it's always with how like society has been towards the women in particular. Uh, well, the society is very patriarchal. Mm, and Catholic. There's a lot. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of shaming when it comes to the Catholic Church, sadly. Um, and Another thing that I think is important to mention is where my parents come from. So my parents come from Guerrero, which is a state in southern Mexico, and they came from a much smaller city, like a smaller town. My mom in particular was from a very secluded part of Guerrero. Or well, when I've looked at her birth certificate, I've tried looking up the the place where she was born, but I can't seem to find it. Uh, to be honest, I don't remember what the entire name of it was, but it kind of sounds like Manzanilla, Manzanillo, something like that. Like it sounds like chamomile, like in Spanish. Um, and also my parents came from an impoverished community. Uh, and that does make a really big difference in the way they were um, socialized into acting, and also in uh, how to treat women or people in general, based like off of their gender. Um, let's see, what else do I need to add to this is, oh, also my dad, from my dad's side, so he's not, it sounds like he's not too sure about like his family history, or like the real, like actual truth about his family history. But from what I know and based off of what he's told me, it sounds like he was taken away from his mom, and he was essentially raised with no mom or actual dad. I think he was raised by an uncle of his. I know he was raised around other kids. Um, like I'm not really sure. Like I don't think he was in like some sort of like foster home like that, or like unless it's like if it was that way, but from what I know it's just that he wasn't raised with his actual mom, who actually is a US citizen, but for some like somehow he was taken away from his mom, and he was being cared for by, I believe it was an uncle and a grandfather of his. Like it just sounds like there was no female like influence like at all, like in the environment that he was growing up. Yeah, in the environment that he was growing up in. Uh And now let's see for my mom. Okay, so my mom in particular, she grew up in this very secluded part of Mexico, of Guerrero specifically. And so going back into her history, plus my grandparents, my grandfather did not like women at all. He had a really like it sound from what from what she's described from me and one of my aunts, uh it sounds like my grandfather had a really deep rooted resentment towards women. It sounds like he was very cruel to my mom and her sisters. Uh, because of him, he or she was not allowed to go to school, or like he was always trying to um get in the way of her trying to pursue any sort of education. She was also put to work as a young child. I'm not really sure like the earliest that she started, but from what my aunt has told me, it sounds like they started working. Her, my other aunt, and my mom that they started working when like before they even turned 9. Um, and they were supposed to like all the money that they were earning that was supposed to be what provided for the family. And also my grandmother was also responsible for bringing in money to provide for the entirety of the family. And I think my grandfather, he did work, but he either used the money very irresponsibly, um or I think he couldn't keep a job, or like he wasn't really like good at working. Like he couldn't stay in a job. He kept getting like let go and such. And like when I or going back to how he would spend the money, it sounds like he spent it a lot on beer and rifles. So yeah, he was the one calling all the shots in the household, but at the same time, he wasn't really taking care of the family, or something was clearly going on with him. And now, focusing on just my grandfather, when he was a young boy, he was told that he was abandoned by his mother. And his mother was being abused very, very badly um, by his father. And I don't remember the entire details, and actually my family or my mom in particular, she didn't know about this until like a few months ago, honestly. And she is I think in her late 40s, I think, or early 50s. I'm sorry. I don't like I mentioned that I'm not close to my mom, so I'm not keeping track at all. Um, but yeah, so my grandfather's mother, she was being treated very, very badly. And it sounds, from what I've been told, it sounds like it was pretty brutal. And she couldn't take it anymore. And she, like, supposedly, she ran away. And based off of that, my grandfather's father told him and his brothers that their mom abandoned them. And since then, he just hated women from then on. And well, it's just very like shocking and very heartbreaking to know that one of my ancestors went like experienced something so horrible. And because of the times, she really could not do anything. Like, there was just so much against her. She couldn't do anything to protect herself, or possibly like with or also like to protect my grandfather and his brothers. And I'm also thinking of what my grandfather may have went through as a small child. And well, that's that's kind of how this long cycle of constantly hating the other gender started within my family. Now with my dad, I don't think he hates me, but he for sure has a bias. And he for sure prefers my brother over me. I do think he cares about me on some level, but I will be honest, he often forgot that I'm his daughter, not a surrogate girlfriend or partner. And that is one of the reasons why I am not exactly close to him. I can maintain a better relationship with him, because I think he does care about me on some level. But I do have to have very like firm boundaries with him too, because the second I start being a little bit more like friendly, or like maybe like a little bit more expressive, he kind of thinks that that's like he can just act however he wants with me, and he can start telling me a lot of things that like he might just start talking about like his preferences of what women he thinks are beautiful. And unfortunately, like that was something that I dealt with a lot, or like I had to like listen to a lot as a young girl, and then eventually like as a teenager, is him talking about what he thinks a woman should look like. Um and then him asking me when I'm going to start exploiting my body essentially. To him, he doesn't see like absolutely anything wrong with it. But that was what he was like expecting out of me. Like he was expecting me to just just throw myself like to sorry if I'm not able to articulate this very well, but he was pretty much expecting me to just give myself away to everyone around me, to not have any boundaries, and to just be a performative doll for everyone is basically what his expectation was out of me. And if it wasn't that, I was supposed to be like the son he always wanted. And yeah, there were a lot of times where he keeps pressuring me to be like the next Cuauhtémoc Blanco, which is like he's a very iconic football or a soccer player from Mexico. Like he's expecting me to be this sports sports prodigy and all. Um and let's say if I couldn't do it, he would just criticize me so much and just focus on like, ay, ¿por qué no puedes hacer eso? Pégale bien a la pelota, or like, why can't you do it? Why can't you hit the ball right? Like, I did tennis during high school, and yeah, anytime he was trying to like observe me playing tennis, I want to say that maybe it's because we're not close, that that's why I probably wasn't playing well at all. But if I made a mistake or anything, he would just be very like just so mad at me for making a mistake, and that was very disheartening. Um, and for sure it did affect me at some point. Especially like if you're hearing it all the time. Um, but now my mom, on the other hand, my mom does not. She doesn't like me at all. Like maybe a tiny part of her cared about me when I was a small infant, but as soon as I became like a teenager, it like she doesn't like me at all, and it was just more evident that this lady does not like me because every time she looks at me, I'm constant like my presence is constantly reminding her of everything she never had, and everything like just she could have had she just been born somewhere else. And sadly, that's all she thinks of whenever like she sees me. She just thinks of everything that she never had. And unfortunately, I think it is also a case of internalized misogyny. Uh, Especially considering how she was treated as a girl for majority of her life. From what she's told me and from what I've heard from other relatives, it sounds like no matter what she did, it was all like she was always to blame for everything that happened to her. Um, and most of the time they were fixating on the fact that she was a girl. Uh, she wants to wear a dress that day, and she wants to wear her hair in a new style. It's her fault that she keeps that some guy keeps bothering her. Um she wants to try out some new lipstick that she was able to buy for herself. It's her fault that other people are mad at her because she wants to play with her own beauty. And that's her body. And like it's sad because she was pretty much taught to not or to hate being a girl, to hate being herself. And I do remember like as a small child, I do remember kind of wondering why my mom never really like seemed open or like comfortable like teaching me about my body. And see, the reason why like I was able to figure out a lot of things is because I was so curious, and I'm still the same way. And then also I was that type of kid that would always be sneaking into like different cabinets um and like drawers that my parents had because I was very curious, and also they were always withholding so much and like so much against me. um or they were always withholding all this information like from me. And well, of course, like I got curious, so yeah, like I do remember like the first time I like figure or I came like I found like the boxes of feminine products, like the hygiene products. I for sure like I didn't know what they were, but I was just like looking at the box, looking at the little pictures, and just trying to figure out what I was supposed to do with them. And I think eventually my mom realized that I was like getting curious about like different things like related to my body, and she got me all these different books that were supposed to help me understand my own body. I think they were by American Girl, I believe. Yeah, I think so. So I'm gonna just say that. So that's why I'm saying that I think my mom, like from when I was an infant up until like I reached my teenage years, I think she did care about me on some level. But when I started like to become a woman, basically, she did not care about me at all. And well, to be honest, sometimes I do wonder if I am having trouble just being completely honest, is saying that I don't think this woman ever liked me. Like, even as a child, I think she cared about me because it was her social obligation to do so. And because she was very indoctrinated in the Catholic Church, and she is supposed to do right by Jesus and God. So I think that's why she still did things that were good for me. But at the same time, she was terrible to me. It's like now I can like I've worked a lot on not letting a lot of the memories um trigger a lot of sadness. And then occasionally I do get sad, but for sure, like nowadays, like I just want this, like, I just want this to be over with. Like, I don't want this to be a part of my life anymore. Like, or that chapter of me being her daughter. I want that chapter to end already. Um, and yeah, so there's a little background on kind of how the whole cycle started. But thinking back to what else I wanted to say on about this. Oh, it was about like the challenges and yeah, the challenges that come up from having been brought up in this type of dynamic with your parents. Again, like the reason why I mentioned that my perspective is from like as a young woman is because I do know of some individuals who are men and they were brought up in households where their mom clearly or she like their mom had some resentment toward or like trauma related to men, and she raised those individuals, her son, like their sons, they raised them with that resentment that they had from their past experiences with the men in their lives. And well, with these individuals that I know, well, I'm seeing how difficult it is for them to have healthy romantic relationships, and or like I'm seeing just how badly they were affected by this, and it really makes me sad. Well, one person, like one individual in particular, just like I don't know the actual details, because well, I have not asked, and also I don't want to, uh, like pressure this or like make this person feel pressure to just tell me like these very difficult um details about their life. But I just like can sense it like in our conversations and just like it yeah, like I can just sense it like in the way like his whole like energy kind of just like shifts whenever we start talking about like certain things. And like I can see that this person like he gets really sad, and like he's trying to maintain his composure, but it's obvious like to me that what we were talking about, like I don't know, like for example, like maybe we were talk or like maybe we were talking about a specific painting that I didn't do right, and maybe um from how I was talking about how I didn't get this painting right, like the proportions aren't right. Like I'm not like trying to like criticize like or like make it into like such a big deal that I didn't get the proportions exactly right. Um, but just from telling or just from like noticing that I didn't get the details like exactly the way I would have wanted to, that was enough to get him to get this individual to like get flashbacks to something that clearly hurt him pretty badly in his in like some at like some point in his life. And they I think overall I just feel very sad that this person is working through through like the effects of growing up with a parent who had some resentment or just really, yeah, just really bad feelings, resentment towards their child because they happen to have been born of a certain gender. And going back to what challenges this ends up bringing, like, or yeah, what challenges come up with having been brought up in this type of environment. The main one is for sure that you will likely have difficulties with relationships, especially like romantic relationships. Probably like a very unhealthy attachment style. And I'm going to be honest, I have read about attachment styles, but I don't think I'm very informed on attachment styles. So if you know more about that, feel free to share that in the comments. But I just, like, going off the top of my head, I know that there is just a weird attachment type of style. Um, and like you don't know how to make good connections with other people. But at the same time, you clearly want that connection, or like you need to have like some human connection, but you either don't value it like as like you don't try to maintain it basically. Take it for granted, I would say. It's basically like you want connection, but at the same time you don't really know how to get that in a positive way that is good for you and the other person that you want the connection from. um the other one that I'm thinking of is having identity confusions. And this makes me think of how I was saying that my dad kind of wanted wanted me to be like a son for him, but even so, like the way he was with my brother, like I would say like my brother was coddled a lot, but he wasn't really like allowed to like actually live on his own, or like they kind of just stopped. Both my parents, like, they didn't really let him like experience life, or they kind of like yeah, they coddled him a lot too. Um, but let's see, like the identity issue or like confusion, um, you get that, and also some resentment towards like who you naturally are. I know for sure that I did feel pressured to kind of be more boyish. Uh, and not in the way like not in like in terms of style, like of clothes. It was more so in like just the behavior that my dad expected me to like be like. I'm sorry, but even uh, my dad's not very hygienic, and he kind of doesn't realize that men also need to take care of their bodies and diet. Uh, and he, to him, he thinks like he kind of just thinks that he doesn't need to take care of his body or anything like that, and he expected me to be the same way. Um, I do remember I got mocked a lot of times for being a girl, for liking things that were for girls. Uh, for my own femininity. Uh, yeah, like I do remember plenty of times that I felt like there was something, or the way that my parents acted with me was that there was something wrong with me for just simply being female and for liking my own femininity, for having emotions. And this is why, like I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out like how to articulate this more. I feel like I, I want to say like it's funny or it's interesting. Those are probably not the words for this, like for this context, but it's interesting how if I cared about my emotions, if I showed any sort of vulnerability, for example, like crying because I saw a very sad scene in a movie because it was very moving for me, or because I was sad because I didn't do well on a test. To my dad, to my mom, they saw that as an excuse to mock me. And like I think I know this is common in a lot of uh Mexican like households. Okay, I don't want to say the word, but there is a word or like several words that people say when you're being very sentimental. Uh and it's mm, mm, like if you're Mexican, like you're probably gonna know like what word it is that I'm talking about. But I think what I was like trying to say was that it's interesting how any sort of emotional expression, especially if it's a very like deep emotion, uh it means that you're like you're weak or you should be mocked, and that sentimentality that you have, it's something to be ashamed of or to to not be taken seriously, basically. And that's like being able to express your feelings or to be sentimental, that's not limited to just being female. Like guys can be sentimental too. So this is also why I do feel really sad for what my dad, my grandfather also may have went through as young boys, because especially during their childhood when they were more more expressive with their emotions, I don't know how they were treated. I don't know if they were comforted when it was something serious and they should have been cared for in that moment. And it's no surprise why my dad acted the way he did with me. Like he was never shown or never he I don't think he was ever truly treated very kindly or in like even in a humane type of way. Um and then also for my mom has like I feel a lot of sadness for the things she went through as a young girl and then as a young woman. And I also see how she has so much disdain towards me, like there was nothing she could have done to protect herself and to even have like any sort of like joy for her own existence. Like anytime she tried just a little bit to celebrate herself, to celebrate the fact that she is alive in this world and she has a right to live her own life, anytime that she just celebrated herself just a little bit, someone had to be there and just completely destroy it or just tear her down. And she went through this so much, like from childhood all the way up until adulthood. Well, it's no surprise why, like, she is just like such a bully now. And nowadays, like, I also feel like sad because when she's acting like really erratic, when she's being very boisterous and just being like I'm sorry, but both of my parents, they have had a lot of times where they were very disrespectful to service workers. It was very uncomfortable for me to watch, and I couldn't say anything directly to them because if I tried, they would get really angry at me for just telling them to be nicer to service workers. Like one time my dad like seriously raised his hand at me because I told him to stop whistling or like making like these weird sounds towards a female server. Like you don't have to call her as if she's like as if she's an animal. You can just say like excuse me, like miss, or like have some manners. Oh my gosh. And because I called him out just that one time, he started insulting me and he just stared at me in a very mean way. And like he just like tried to like intimidate me. And he seriously raised his hand at me as if he was like gonna like try to hit me, all because I told him to not be acting so gross towards this female, this young lady. She was a young lady at the time, and how my mom has acted with service workers. She's just like she's like a Karen, like that like that persona that a lot of people talk like make memes on, that very complainy and entitled. That's my mom, but like she's like on an extreme like level of like a Karen. Um and I feel like I've felt so embarrassed and just like I am so sorry to you, like whoever you are, like as like the service worker, and you have to deal with my mom because my mom is just like it really, like if you look at it like from that psychological standpoint, you really are just seeing this wounded inner child of hers just acting so rude, and you're just, and like from like the psychological stand like perspective, it's just like, oh, like I know what it is, but I can't do anything to stop it because she doesn't want to listen. She like this is like who she is at her core. Like it's her wounded, like it's the wounded inner child, and her and her deeply wishing that all the people who harmed her, that they get the punishment that she thinks they deserve. So that, like, I don't know if I can like go if I should go into this like now, but like the level of psychological like damage that my mom most likely has, like it's a lot. Um and it was very hard to live with, especially like as a young child. Oh, but also going back to difficult relationships. Um, I know both of my parents. The reason why it like they ended up getting divorced was because like it part of it was because they were both raised or brought up to pretty much see each other as enemies all the time. Like there was never some sort of um willingness to work together as a union or to work collaboratively. It was constantly, you did this to me, I can do this. Like they're all like it's just they're the way they acted with each other, just it's always ego, like just their egos fighting each other. Never any sort of unity. And even like within like how they brought us up, like we're not like myself and my siblings were not exactly like close, I would say, or like we can get along with our parents, but we don't really have a like gentle closeness or like willingness to just be happy in each other's presence. Um my siblings and I we're very different, but that's because I was the one like taking care of everyone and um because my parents were always at work, well, that made things different for us. We just focused on like getting along with each other and having like mostly a good time. And I'm not saying that we clashed a lot, but the I know that with my siblings and I, like, we actually like each other and we're happy to see each other and we can enjoy like coexisting with each other and asking asking or relying on each other to do a specific responsibility, and we're not expecting like I'm not like whenever like if it becomes to just like doing the dishes, uh I might ask my brother to do them, not because I think he should do it because he's a guy or anything like that. I just ask him because like hey, I might not have time to do this and this other chore that I needed to do. Can you do this? Like please, and there's no problem. And same with like my brother, or actually no, my brother, or like my I have two brothers. My youngest brother has special needs, and he is a very sweet kid, and I don't think he I don't think he really like knows about like gender biases or anything like that. I think he like if he like he like my brother, my youngest brother Julio, he loves everyone. Um but my other brother, the second oldest of my siblings, he for sure had a few times where he thought he could boss me or my younger sister around simply because like we were female. And thankfully like he eventually like gave up on that, and also like we and or he wasn't the type to kind of like prove his point. I think eventually he just realized that it was not going to work on us, and that if you expect us to do something for you, there is a way to ask. like for it, and most of all be polite, and we might consider it. But with my but with that brother, for sure, I think unfortunately because of how my parents were raising us and how they acted with him, I think he kind of did try to treat us in a similar way, where he thought that because we were girls, myself and my younger sister, that he could be a bully to us and um insult us for having feelings or for like showing any sort of like feeling, um and for having interests that were feminine. And he might say things about it now to himself, but directly to us, he doesn't do it as much anymore. And also, my sister and I just know not to take his opinions very seriously, to just maintain the peace with him, but obviously, like, don't take what he says, like, don't take it to heart and just like ignore him. So unfortunately there was that part, but for the most part, it wasn't too bad, or it never got to the extent that like to the same level of to like the same way that my parents would act with me or my sister. But yeah, there was that. So I did that. There's difficult relationships, like you internalizing some of the biases that your parents projected on you. Okay, I think I already touched on that. And then identity confusion. Yes, I already went through that. Then there's difficulty with vulnerability, or like this unconscious fear of like more softness in your personality, or openness with your emotions, because you were mocked for having any sort of emotional expression. Um, and so like that's also where it just makes relationships harder, is because you need to be able to have some openness with your emotions to be able to establish connections with other people. And if you grew up in an environment where your parents were mocking you, or like you were even punished for expressing your emotions, expressing any sort of like vulnerability, like say like you were a small child and something scared you, and you needed, or you were hoping your parent would be there to comfort you, and they mocked you for it, or they try to punish you for it, like that. Vulnerabilities like that, you if you were brought up like that, it does make it really hard for you to be able to share share more, like or to be more open with your emotions in a sincere way, with people who actually do care about you. So there is that. I think I did speak on that a little, like a little bit in already. Let's see. Hyper independence. Yeah, that was something that I think I did deal with a little bit. Mostly through being like I mostly dealt with that when I was a teenager, early 20s, but now in my late 20s, I think I can catch myself when I'm kind of going into that hyper independent state. But also, I think nowadays I do have more, like, I feel okay with relying on other people and then also trusting them to figure out certain things, and then me not like kind of like being worried that they're not going to be able to get it. And like there's that, like, yeah, what I do remember that when I was like in my early 20s and as a teenager, I for sure tried a lot to just do everything on my own. And on top of that, I kind of dealt with my parents kind of not being there for me when they needed, or like when they should have been there for me. Or like I did need support from them, and so I didn't have a choice but to do or like figure things out on my own. Um, I want to say that I'm glad that I've kind of broken out of that type of thinking, because making friendships nowadays is much more easier, and um and I want to say just like you just or now that like I've broken out of that type of thinking that like I have to be hyper independent. I think I think for the yeah, that is the main positive is, or positive like outcome is that it's much easier to just socialize and enjoy the company of other people and to make friendships, and not constantly being like not being constantly worried on about like are they going to be there for me, like are like they actually going to help me and everything, like they can, like they want to. um it's easier to just have more trust in people. um but as a teenager and in my early 20s, I for sure had a very hard time with this. And um it's not really a good thing to, or like a good mindset to constantly be living in, because you just end up isolating yourself more, and also you don't really know how to seek out genuine connections, or like spot like or like identify like potential toxic connections, and you might stay you might stay in relationships that are not good for you at all. I know for sure that because of how I was brought up in my family, that impacted me a lot when it came to making friendships as a young girl. I often would be getting myself involved with people who also came from troubled households. Um, but they, like, even though they were going through, well, I remember wanting to be friends with them because I saw that they, or like I saw and heard from them that they were going through a difficult time at home, and I thought, oh, well, I know what that's like. Let's be friends. So yeah, I was trauma bonding with these people, with like these people. And then it wasn't until like later when I would see like that, oh, that they may have, or they may be living in a difficult household similar to me, but that doesn't mean that they have the same level of compassion, or like, yeah, they, that doesn't mean that they're completely innocent, so to say. Because I do remember that there were a few times where I saw that some of these individuals, they had very toxic traits. Like, they could be just as manipulative, and not like, now looking back, uh most likely they were just kind of doing it because like they saw this behavior repeatedly, and so they, I want to say partially it wasn't out of malice, but at the same time there were a few times where I did notice that some of them, they were a little bit too detached from their own humanity, because like I saw it in their behavior and how they acted with other people, and also how they acted with animals. Yeah, and a lot of that, like the reason why I did get like in, like I was constantly getting into these like different toxic connections with people, was because I really did not know what to be like careful, like what to like, I didn't know what was good for me or what was bad for me. Like, I thought I was supposed to be kind to like everyone, and that made people be good to me too. Um and then also because I did deal a lot with my parents like constantly criticizing me for every little thing that I did, I for sure got into connections where I felt like I had to perform all these different acrobats just to prove that I was worthy of being someone's friend, or that like I deserved to matter to the friend group, like whatever it was. But eventually, like over time, like I started seeing that I don't need to do that, and I'm not going to, because it is exhausting. And also, I already have to try so much to prove that I'm worthy of good treatment, of love from my parents. I already have to do that at home. I'm not going to do that with other people. Like, it's exhausting, and it does feel like a little bit of a slow death too, or like it's like you're it's like you're sick, and it's like and like the symptoms are like slowly like coming into like they're slowly shutting down everything in your body, or is what I would say, like that, like if is what I would say that trying to please your parents that don't like you because of your gender, like that's what it feels like, just constantly trying so hard to hope that they're gonna treat you better, or maybe they'll like you a little bit more if you do this thing, or if you start acting a specific way. It feels like you're getting sick, and the symptoms are slowly coming over you and shutting down every part of your body little bit, like little bit by little, and you eventually give in to that emptiness. Like there you just like at some point you just realize that you're doing so much to hope that these people will like you just a little bit, and none of it works. And that, like, it's very hard to live with that, like to live through that, especially for so many years, like your entire childhood. And this is also kind of where I'm reminded of why I kept thinking of this, is because, or like, or why I kept thinking of this subject, and why I wanted to speak on this is because I recently took my first long distance trip from the Phoenix area to Prescott up north in Arizona. And for a little bit, my dad wouldn't let me go. Like, he kept trying to deter me from driving to Prescott. Um, and I went with my younger sister, and in a way, this trip really showed both of us that we're capable of making decisions on our own, and we can move through the world confidently on our own if we want to. And I've mentioned that I'm in my late 20s. And so while I was on this trip, or on the drive to Prescott, I was thinking of how I was being brought up in within like my household. It was so unsustainable for me, and how did I even make it to 28 living the way that I did? How have I been able to keep going, basically, because I seriously had nothing pouring back into me except for my younger siblings, like my youngest siblings, who are 12 and 14 years younger than me. How was I how was I still how was I still alive, basically? Because it is, just, so, because it is, just, so, like that's like the only way like I can describe it is just that it feels like you're slowly dying on the inside because you're constantly always ignored. No matter what you do, it's never enough for them. You may want to change things for yourself. You may want to venture into your own independence, but at the same time, your parents, they don't let you. And then at the same time, they complain because you're not independent enough. Well, how? Because like I'm thinking back to that experiment of when this group of scientists was asked, like they were trying to see how play is important for small babies. And it was an experiment where they asked the mothers to be blank faced in front of their babies and to not show absolutely any like emotion. And then eventually the babies got really scared because they're not seeing any other expression on their mom, and it made them feel scared and just worried that like what's going on, like why aren't you playing with me. um and it's making me think of like my own childhood because I got ignored a lot by both of my parents. Again, they provided for me and they did do some things right because I think they knew it was their social obligation to do so. And if they didn't, like that looks bad on them. And on top of that, the religious influence was also like was also there to like force them to put in some effort. But at the same time, like that was all they could do. And even though that was extremely hard on me, it was slightly better than what my mom and my dad went through as very small children. And again, like I don't know the exact details of what they went through, but considering the culture and the societal norms of southern Mexico, to be specific, what they went through was most likely way more way more harder. And well, essentially like my parents, they've just like it's like my parents, they were just they it's like they were small children too. Like there was no way that they were gonna know how to properly care for me because even like no one cared for them. But even so, there were some things that they did do right. And now that I'm saying this, like part of me wonders like if am I saying this because I have been told so many times that you have to honor your parents. You have like your parents love you and it you always have to they're always above you. You don't have any feelings. You or your feelings have to be put aside because your parents did so much for you. And again, this is just like I like maybe this is the guilt. Some of the guilt tripping that I've heard so much throughout my life. And maybe that's why like it's hard to express these complicated thoughts, feelings, because I always have to prioritize everyone else's feelings. Like maybe it's years of guilt. I don't know. And also again, like I'm saying that I'm not the most articulate person. It's like this really is me just thinking about specific subjects and seeing how this has played out in my life and has been the same for you. And so I feel like that's all of the talking points I have to say on the challenges of growing up with parents who may have some resentment towards you because of your gender. Like, I think that's all I have to say right now. But to end this whole thing, I want to say that healing is kind of like this lifelong journey, honestly. I don't think there's any like set destination or like there's not like a day when you're just like, "Oh, I'm healed. I've never felt any sort of pain in my life." I feel like you're constantly working through your healing process all throughout your life. And even like even now like I haven't spoken to my mom in like months now and I have no plans on ever speaking to her again. And like I feel much better that I don't speak to her anymore. And same with this trip. Like this trip this trip to Prescott, it did feel very empowering for me too. But at the same time, I still went through moments where I'm realizing how how much my childhood has held me back from truly enjoying my life. And well, and that made me feel like really sad, even though I was on this trip with my sister who genuinely does love me. Like, even though I'm with her, I'm healing at the same time, but at the same time, I'm also grieving at the same time. Like, and yes, like with my sister and my youngest brother, I for sure am healing so much of my inner child with them. Like, that's one of the reasons why I'm so happy that they were born and that I have siblings that are much younger than me, because yes, I did it, like I had to be like the third parent for them, but at the same time I got to savor my inner, like my childhood again through playing with them. And it's, in a way, it's empowering and also very healing, like, or like liberating. But at the same time, I still go through moments where I'm accepting that my own childhood was not as lovely, is the best way I can describe it right now. Um and so yeah, that I would say that that's kind of what healing, or like ways to try to heal from having grown up in this type of dynamic with your parents, is, for one, reconnecting with your inner child, of course, and also being open to allowing other people in your life, because it's through other people that you're gonna see that your upbringing was not exactly normal, and that there's a different way of living, and you deserve to be loved, to be cared for, and just you need to know, like, you need other people to pretty much affirm to you that you matter and you are much appreciated in their lives, and like they're happy that you exist. um and I'm sorry if I'm not articulating this very well, but that I'm speaking like just like straight from my heart, I would say. um I want to say that that's all I have to say or to talk about on this subject. Is, yeah, this, it's a difficult thing to experience, and it does come with a lot of challenges. But with time, you start to get more strength in yourself, like more fortitude, like mental strength for yourself. And at the same time, you don't you don't look down on your moments of vulnerability. You're on the fact that you are human, you have weaknesses, and that doesn't that mean you are still worthy of being loved, and you're not supposed to be this invincible superhuman. You deserve to be cared for as well. And you can find those people, the people who are going to be there for you, who are going to be happy to welcome you into their lives, and they want to try to be present for you. And I want to say that is pretty much how your healing starts, in letting go of what you went through as a child. If you felt that you were hated by your parents, all because of your gender. And so if you have anything you would like to add to this, maybe also if you can articulate it much better than me, feel free to share that in the comments. I sincerely hope that all of you who are listening, you have people in your life that genuinely appreciate you, even if there are a little bit of like some like minor hiccups in that connection. There is at least effort from their part, and most of all, they don't want to hurt you. They may have trouble understanding you at times. Maybe you might also have to put more effort in to the connection as well. But for the most part, neither you or the other person wants to hurt each other. You just want to acknowledge each other and appreciate each other. And I hope you do have people in your life that like sort of help you breathe again, honestly. And even if that's not in person, maybe it's online or through your favorite um, art forms like music or books. I hope you have something to just remind you that you you deserve to enjoy your life as well, and you deserve to celebrate yourself too. So, I think I have come to an end with this episode. It was a difficult episode, I would say, or to get through, and I am sorry if it was all over the place. That is really how my thoughts are. Like they're constantly bouncing from one subject to another subject. It's hard for me to have a concise thought process. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And I wish you all a lovely night or day wherever you are. And until the next time.